Welcome to the Manager Matt podcast show. The show is designed to give you solutions to your day-to-day management and leadership problems. It's hosted by Matthew Haddock, a frontline manager and leader with over 25 years of experience. If you're ready, then let's get on with the show.
Hi Sarah, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me, Matt.
Hey, no problem. You are the first guest on the Manager Matt podcast show, so congratulations. Well done. You're the first one. I've always been talking to myself in a room. Now I'm talking to somebody else in a room, so a little bit different. So yeah, Sarah, just tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? What drives you? Where have you gone through as your career? Just give us a bit of a background.
Well, I've done a little bit of everything in human resources. I currently work for Carey with you, only I'm in the U.S. I started at Carey just over a year and a half ago. I started in the integrated operations side of the business as a HR business partner, working for the food and beverage side. And then in August, I moved over to the global leadership side of the house, working for our leaders out of the Ireland side in corporate office. Prior to that, I was a HR leader for 25 years. So working for businesses such as aerospace and defense, government in the US again, and things like construction, manufacturing. So I have quite a variety of different experiences. I've worked for anything between, small business, medium size to large, very large, just like Carey. So I have a very good, broad sense of human resources. Just had teams reporting to me up to probably 25, 30 people. So done a little bit of everything, anything from, recruiting, onboarding to safety, workers' comp. So you name it. I don't think there's anything. I don't think there's anything in HR that I haven't done.
And that's why we need experts like you on the show, because you've done everything. So you've been everywhere, You've done everything. But what got you into it? What got you into being the HR person? Was it always a drive to be in that side? Is it part of your nature? What got you into it?
Not at all, actually. I started out in construction. I worked for a general contractor for 7 years when I was a young 20-something, and I won't date myself.
Not that long
ago. I worked as operations assistant. I was making copies of plans, and the personnel manager at the time, so this was, way back when they didn't even call it human resources, she called me and said she had an opening for an assistant, and she thought I had a nice smile and I would be good at the front desk. And she asked me if I would interview for the job. And I said, I don't even know what personnel is. So I went and talked to her, and we connected right away. I thought it sounded like a fun job to sit up front and, meet with people, get to know a little bit more about their, ins and outs of the business. And I, lo and behold, I got into it, and people started leaving in that department, and they weren't backfilling positions. So I had to learn very quickly benefits. I had to learn recruiting, everything about the business. And then my manager left, and I had to go to school. So I didn't really have a choice. I had to go to college because I was not going to college at the time. So the company paid for me to go get an associate's degree, and they promoted me to manager. And it just kind of went from there. I went and got a bachelor's degree. When I worked in aerospace, I got my first master's degree in leadership development. And now I'm currently finishing up second and third master's degrees in mental health counseling, grief counseling, and getting a life coaching certification. So
you see, I told the listeners I had an expert, and I've got so much we can explore there. I do like the idea of the personnel, because I remember when I started working, they called it a personnel department. It wasn't a human resource. It was personnel. I like that kind of feel to it. And before my time, my boss at the time, he had a really bad accent. So we're in textiles. So we're in sort of early 80s textiles. old school Yorkshire kind of trade, and he managed to catch his finger and lose half of his finger. And he always
Oh,
tells the tale. He was fine. Don't worry, listeners. He didn't pass away. It was a fine. But he tells the tale of running to personnel with his finger in a kind of bit of tissue, storming into the personnel office, and the secretary on the door went, "Excuse me, can you go outside and knock?" You know, like. But yeah, it's changed massively. I mean, human resources has grown. You know, and what it covers now, you've just mentioned a few of those things. You're going through, motivating people, retention, diversity, training, massive amounts. Is there any particular element of it that you really enjoy at the minute?
oh, I love talent management, leadership development. So all of those areas, talking about succession planning. I love behavioral assessments. I'm certified in a number of different assessments. I'm really trying to help leaders plan for the future in businesses, looking at their overall strategy and trying to look at the future and what that future looks like for their leadership and who are going to be the next players, really. So just love the talent management side of the house. So,
Excellent.
if you had asked me, maybe 5, 7 years ago, what were my passions? I think it was probably employee relations. I love positive employee relations. So, really sitting down, talking to employees and really getting into understanding more about them. And that kind of led me into the where I'm at now with the master's degrees. And I still love employer relations, but really taking that to the next level with the whole talent management piece. So
Brilliant.
building relationships is a very strong suit for me. So
And that works lovely when we talk about building relationships. One of the things we spoke about off air was around the idea of what are the big 5 things that you can do as a manager and a leader and do well. And I'm a big believer in the idea of the one-to-one, the feedback, delegation, coaching and empowering. And, I'd be interested to explore some of those with you. So, in your experience, where do you think you get the best benefits when regarded to one-to-ones? Have you had good and bad experiences? Could you tell listeners a bit about that?
yeah, when you do one-on-ones as a leader, I think it's really critical to, as a new manager coming into your role, whether you're early career, mid, late, I think coming into a new team, it's really critical to build those relationships right off the bat. So if you can do one-on-ones, whether it's weekly would be the ideal situation. If you can't do that, depending on the size of your team, as often as you possibly can, just to build that initial relationship with your team members and having a standard agenda so that you really don't get off track. Talking about their goals, how you can help them meet their goals, what you can do to remove obstacles with your team members, and, really kind of staying away from your own objectives, your own, I guess, keeping it about them,
Hmm.
not about yourself
No,
is really
yeah.
critical.
It'd be
Yeah,
quite difficult not to slip into a kind of a list of things that you want them to do.
yes,
You got to be aware. I mean, I try to split mine up into sort of like the first 10 minutes around them, the family, what's going on in the world. Sometimes
yes,
talk about the pets, chat about one of the guys who works with his horse and loves his horse. And we talk around that for a while. He loves his kids as well, but talk about his
yeah,
horse. And we'll do a lot of that because I think that gives you that person behind the role. You can understand what motivates them. And then I'll move into their team. They usually have
yeah.
10 minutes on their team and how that's working. And then the last bit is around how they develop, where they're going, their goals.
Yeah.
So I kind of do that. Is it very prescriptive when you do them then? Or are you more sort of fluid? Do you have like a template? Or how do you do it?
No, I mean, I have a template in my head.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, I'm very fluid. At anything that I do, I try to keep it more conversational.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my style. I try not to be, I try not to be the type of leader who reads off a sheet of
Yeah.
paper. But I try to keep everything very conversational with people. I just try not to make it about myself,
Mm-hmm.
and always about them. and building that relationship. And that's always been my success with people in building those relationships, is to try to make it about them, and just like you had said, Matt, talking about their family, their pets, things of that nature, and understanding them as a person and how they build their teams and what they need to be successful. So,
Yeah.
and again, trying not to, in a one-on-one, dump more work on them and more tasks and things like that, because
Yeah.
they're
No, you're right.
already overloaded.
Oh,
So,
yeah, and you're spot on there. And it sometimes, I mean, when I first started in with teams, especially when you mentioned you just got a new team or you're new to the role,
yeah,
I try to schedule in a longer one-on-one, because you can find that I try to go to half an hour. I try to do this 10-10-10 split. But there's so much information. I think the first time the new team I was with, I probably spent 30-40 minutes just chatting around. Nothing really, just talking, just getting, it wasn't a meeting, it wasn't formal. We were just talking, having a coffee, having a talk. And then as it matured, we've seen that we go down this more kind of formal route. But I think that works really well. I think you're right about that. What about if you think of any times where you've had a really good one-to-one, and reversely, has there been any bad experiences? What do you think people do wrong?
um, I've had really good experiences with one-on-ones with my team members, just because I've had those really positive employee relations. Even if they're not my direct team members, I've found that I've had one-on-ones with other leaders, managers, just to get to build those relationships. And it's always been a positive experience. I have not directly had any unsuccessful one-on-ones. However, I've heard, just from the role that I've been in, some pretty negative stories where people have gotten into one-on-ones and their leader has given them more of a additional workload. And it's been an experience where they go in there, it's not anything about, how's the family, how are the kids, pets, things like that. It's all about, where's your workload at? And here's additional tasks. I need it done by XYZ. And that's all it's about. And then it's a cut off, done.
Gone.
And the person gets out of that meeting feeling very demotivated. And they're just kind of like, I don't want to do this again. Like, can we just not do these one-on-ones anymore?
Yeah.
Where they just don't feel like they're valued. Like I said, they're just very demotivated, because it's not about them.
And then people don't want to, like I said, people don't want to do the next one. It becomes avoiding the one-to-one, because I always say to my guys, like, it's your time. It's your time to sit down. We talk around the things you want to do. Hopefully you're going to get some out of it. I'm getting some out of it. If it becomes more of a, oh God, I've got another one of them, I don't want to sit down with him, then they don't turn up, they find excuses, they cancel meetings, I think you're right. It's kind of, you can't put more work on these people. They've already got work. And if by chance you haven't got those people working, then the one-to-one's not the tool to be using. You should be giving yourself a plan, a strategic list of things you want the guys to be working on as a group. Where are their time being spent? But the one-to-one's not for that. How about skip levels? So you say you got your one-to-one with your directs. Have you ever skipped down another level and sort of done it at maybe -1 level, or do you not use that tool?
Yes. In my current role, we're not using them where I'm at now, but in previous companies, yes, that was a huge part of our plan as far as how we managed. Especially when I worked in aerospace, we did skip levels, and I found that was very useful, because we had an idea of how the business was being run at different business units, especially when I oversaw, in aerospace, I oversaw multiple business units in different states in the US. So it helped me to understand if my managers were doing the one-on-ones when they were supposed to be, and what the context of those one-on-ones were, and how their employees were feeling when they were having the one-on-ones. Yep.
Yeah.
So
for getting to that kind of next thing. Yeah.
It helped with coaching too, coaching and mentoring the managers that I had under me. So
And that
And
works
same
really
for
well.
my leader above me. If I needed to work on anything, as I was doing my one-on-ones, he was able to give me guidance as well. So I thought they were very valuable.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, don't think we do them as much at the minute, but I think it's something I'm looking at doing as I go forward. And the more you mature, the more you try things out. I think, especially when you've got talent, you talked about talent development, sitting down with the next level up. So sometimes, even if it's not called a formal one-to-one, just to have a conversation with that person, where they want to go, identify their future needs. I think that's a really good way of doing it, and to get a chance to sit down with someone you might not sit down every week with and see where their head's at, because you can get a good relationship with someone, and then they may be the next member of your senior team, because hopefully you're going to progress them. So
Yes.
good.
Yep.
Good. I won't take too much of your time up, because I know you're such a busy lady. But when we go on the show, and Manager Matt's been around for 2 years, I kind of want to look at where I can go next and grow. Do you think that the one-to-ones, the feedback, delegation coaching, and the like, is that areas that you think's where we should be going, or is there other things that you think good managers should be doing?
Oh, I think those are critical areas, especially moving into a leadership role. Like I said, if you're coming in as an early manager, mid-manager, higher level manager, moving into that role, those are the foundational pieces of being a leader. So if you've nailed that, I think it's smooth sailing from there on out with your team members, because you're building those relationships and you have those foundational pieces with your people. And if you have that with your people, you'll be able to succeed without an issue. I think that, skills can be taught, but building those relationships, that's something you have to have going into it. So I firmly believe that you're on the right track with your podcast, and talking about the things that you do, those are the right things, because that's what a manager needs.
That's good. I'm glad you said that. Well, thanks, Sarah, for your time today, and we'll be speaking soon, so hopefully I'll see you later.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you so much for listening to this Manager Matt podcast. We hope you found it interesting, helpful and actionable. One last thing, please leave a quick review on iTunes or with your podcast provider, as it helps to spread the word of Manager Matt. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the podcast, and if you did like anything in particular, send an email to managermattpodcast@gmail.com or visit managermatt.co.uk for more content. Feedback is a gift, so let's keep giving. See you next week.